Family dinners in our house were never really about food. They were about decisions. My father sat at the head of the table like everything revolved around him. My mother agreed with whatever he said before he even finished saying it. And my younger sister, Chloe, had mastered the art of getting her way without ever having to ask twice. That night felt different. Too quiet. Too controlled. Like something had already been decided before I even sat down. Halfway through dinner, my father set his fork down and looked directly at me. "We need to talk," he said. My stomach tightened. "That usually means I'm not going to like it," I replied. He ignored that. "It's about the house," he continued. "Specifically your room." I frowned slightly. "What about it?" My mother stepped in smoothly. "Chloe needs more space," she said. "She's starting her online business, and her room isn't big enough." I glanced at my sister. She didn't even try to hide the small smile on her face. "And?" I asked. My father leaned forward, his tone firm. "So, we've decided you'll move into the guest room." For a second, I thought he was joking. The guest room was barely usable. No proper desk. No storage. Just a bed and a small side table. "That doesn't make sense," I said carefully. "I work from home. I need space." My mother sighed like I was being difficult. "Your sister's future is important too." There it was. The same sentence I'd heard my entire life. Her future matters more. I put my fork down slowly. "I've been using that room for years," I said. "Why now?" My father's expression didn't change. "Because things are changing," he replied. "And you need to adjust." I looked around the table. No one was on my side. Not even neutral. They had already decided. "And if I don't?" I asked quietly. That's when my father said it. Calm. Direct. "Final. Then maybe it's time you move out." The room went completely silent. Even Chloe stopped pretending to eat. I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not shock. Just clarity. "So those are my options?" I asked. My father nodded. "Guest room or move out." My mother didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She had already agreed. I leaned back slightly in my chair and looked at each of them one by one. They were waiting for a reaction. For me to argue. To push back. To lose control. Instead, I nodded. "Okay," I said calmly. "I'll move out." For a split second, no one reacted. Then Chloe smiled. My mother looked relieved. And my father simply nodded, like the problem had been solved exactly the way he wanted. Dinner continued like nothing had happened. Like they hadn't just pushed me out of my own home. But what they didn't realize was that I had been quietly preparing for this moment for months. And moving out wasn't going to be my loss. It was going to be theirs. I didn't waste any time. Within a week, I moved out. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just quietly, efficiently, like someone who had been planning this for months. I packed only what I needed, my laptop, a few clothes, and some books. Nothing extravagant. Nothing unnecessary. I didn't leave behind a mess for them to notice, because I didn't want them to feel satisfied. I rented a small apartment nearby. Barely enough space for a bed, a desk, and a chair. But it was mine. My own space. My own rules. The first few days were strange. For the first time in years, I didn't have to answer to anyone at home. No rules about bedtime. No complaints about noise. No judgment. And yet I felt alive. I started focusing on my work. Freelance jobs at first, then bigger projects. Slowly, I began to save money. Then I invested in some online courses to sharpen my skills. Each success was small, but every small victory felt monumental because it was earned on my own terms. Meanwhile, at home, I heard whispers. I knew they were talking about me. Not because they reached out, but because mutual friends mentioned my sudden absence. Chloe tried to gloat once, claiming, "Don't forget, you're on your own now." I smiled quietly. I know. That's the point. Months turned into a year. And in that year, my life changed in ways I never could have imagined. I upgraded my apartment, started networking, landed contracts that I would never have gotten if I were still under their shadow. My confidence grew, my independence solidified, and the fear of being worthless slowly disappeared. Then one evening, as I returned home from work, I saw a familiar car parked outside my old house. My heart skipped. It was them, my parents, standing at the gate, looking nervous, hesitant. They weren't here to scold me or to control me this time. They were here to ask for something. And I realized right then the power balance had shifted. This time, I wasn't the one begging for a place to stay. This time, they were at my mercy. And I had a choice. I watched them at the gate, my mind racing but my voice steady. "Why are you here?" I asked. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "It's
Chloe," he said.
She's made some bad choices and we need help. Financial help." My mother nodded quickly, her eyes pleading. "We tried to fix it ourselves, but we can't. You're the only one who can help." I took a slow breath, letting their words sink in. 7 years ago, they had called me worthless. 7 years ago, they had told me to leave the house like I was a burden. 7 years ago, they didn't care if I succeeded or failed. And now they were asking me to save them. I studied their faces carefully.
Desperate.
Nervous. Ashamed. I remembered all the nights I had spent struggling on my own. The late nights, working multiple jobs. The times I went hungry just to pay rent. The moments I cried quietly because they didn't believe in me. All of that flashed before my eyes. I let the silence stretch. Finally, I spoke. "You know," I said slowly, "it's funny. You told me I'd never make it, that I'd fail on my own." My father opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. "You told me to leave," I continued. "You didn't care if I succeeded, if I survived, if I even had a future." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "And now you're asking me for help?" My mother's eyes welled up. We didn't know where else to go." I nodded slowly. "I see." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "This is for the bus," I said, handing it to my father, "to get Chloe out of the mess she made." He stared at me, dumbfounded. "This isn't," he began. "No," I said quietly. "This is your choice. Just like it was mine 7 years ago." I stepped aside and gestured toward the gate. "You can leave now, or figure it out yourselves." They hesitated, realizing that the control they once had over me was gone. Finally, defeated, they turned around and walked away. I closed the gate behind them and leaned against it, feeling a calm I hadn't felt in years. They had underestimated me once, but I had grown. I had built my life. And I had learned that sometimes the strongest revenge isn't anger. It's simply living better without them.